The question says, convert the following measurements into scientific notation. So scientific notation involves using a coefficient, which is going to be between 1 to 9.99999 times 10 to an exponent. Okay, so we're going to have some number, the coefficient, times 10 to some exponent. So the trick to doing these things is we need to convert these numbers into a number between 1 and 9.999. And to do that, we're going to move the decimal place. So if we look here, we have 0.000255. And what we're going to end up making our coefficient is 2.55. So this is basically done by moving this decimal place over here. So we're going to put 2.55 times 10. Now, in order to find the exponent, we need to figure out how many times we've moved this number, or moved the decimal place. So we moved it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So we need to move the decimal place 4 times, or we need to multiply by this by 10 to the minus 4th power was what it'll end up being. Now the question becomes, should it be a positive 4 or a negative 4? Since this number is much smaller than 1, this is going to be a minus 4. Note that the units stay. So we're simply changing this number to a number between 1 to 9.99 based on what the number is, in this case 2.55. Then we're using the exponent based on how many times we move the decimal place. If it's a small number, less than 1, then the exponent is negative. If it's a large number, greater than 1, then the exponent is positive. Let's look at this one. So the first thing we need to do is determine the coefficient. So in this case, our coefficient is going to be 1.8. Now, we need to figure out how many times we need to move the decimal place in order to make this into 1.8. Well, this number doesn't have a decimal place, so how do we find that out? Well, then decimal place for a number that doesn't have one is at the end. So now we have to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in order to get that. And in this case, it's going to be positive 6 because this number is much greater than 1. So 1.8 times 10 to the 6 grams. Generally speaking, scientific notation is useful for writing very small numbers and very large numbers. Note that we're going to learn later a number like Avogadro's number, which is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. Okay, you wouldn't want to write this out, right? Because you'd have to write 23 zeros after this. Not quite 23 because we have a few of them already, but basically it would be this huge, really long number, which is not convenient. So it's much easier to use scientific notation.